My name is Dr. Lorna Pham. I'm presenting to you regarding building mental health resilience through cultural humility. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for joining us here wherever you're located, but I'm in Southern California, so beautiful weather at this time. And hopefully where you're at, it's also nice and warm. So I wanted to bring this up to the cohorts of college students, and the reason why I wanted to discuss about mental health resilience through cultural humility, because this is something very important that's been happening to us during this past few years. And there has been a lot of media attention, there's a lot of anxiety-provoking attention has been put into the differences of our culture. I think it has the COVID has really exacerbated the issues we've been seeing for quite some time now. So let me tell you about myself. I'm a 1.5 generation Filipino American. I know my last name is Pham. I'm married to a Vietnamese American. I immigrated here at the age of 11. And I remember before immigrating here, we were in a coup d'etat at that time with one of the ex-president Marcos. And I remember going to school and about to go to school, and it was on the news and they said we can't go to school because there was a huge tank in front of my school, and that was because of the coup d'etat. So when I left there about that time at age 11. I came here with my half brother, and I went into school, got my bachelor's in UC Riverside. I actually started my college at Mount San Antonio College. That's where I got my my general, and then I transferred over to UC Riverside. Got my master's in psychology at Pepperdine, doctorate in psychology and clinical psychology at the Chicago School of Professional Psychology. I have about 18 years experience in behavioral healthcare field. I'm a huge mental health advocate. I really believe that mental health has a lot of stigma and barriers. And so I've always wanted to be open to everybody and push about being a mental health advocate. I've been fortunate enough to be a presenter in 2 cultural competency mental health summits in California. One was in beautiful Sonoma County, and the other one's in San Diego. Currently I'm a consultant. I work in a lot of behavioral substance abuse, mental health, residential facilities. I also do expert consulting as forensic psychology. I have a private practice, and also I'm an adjunct professor. In my daily life, I am bombarded by my 2 little monsters. I have 2 little girls, age 11 and 7, that are the apple of my eyes. And we have a very untraditional, I guess you can say, family dynamics. My husband is a stay-at-home father, and better him than I am, actually, and for the 2 girls, and I'm the one that's working. And so again, this plays a lot of part in the resiliency as well too, because of the changes of us also being Asian Americans. So I'm gonna give you something to look at right now. And how resilient are you? So I'll give you about 5 minutes. I want you to go over these 6 questions and get a pen and paper, and you need to evaluate yourself from strongly disagree, neutral, agree, strongly agree, based on these 6 questions. Okay, so giving you about 5 minutes, put in your answers, and then we're gonna total them up afterwards. Okay, you're all done. You can come back to it if you miss it. Okay, so what I want you to do afterwards, add the value from 1 to 5, value 1 to 5 of your responses. Actually, I'm sorry, 1 to 6 of all the items, and it can create about a range from 6 to 30. So you add that value, You divide those questions in your 6 in your final score. So whatever your score is divided by 6, and whatever your score is, it should have like a decimal point into it. So whether it's 4.6, 1.2, whatever it is, but keep that score for now. Okay, and we'll come back to that score later. All right, mental illness. I want to discuss about mental illness and how it's affecting the United States. So mental illness, United States, 1 in 5 US adults experience mental illness, and 1 in 20 US adults experience serious mental illness. Now, what's serious mental illness versus experiencing mental illness? So serious mental illness is the one you have under schizophrenia spectrum, severe bipolar, severe major depressive disorders. Okay? 17% of youth 6 to 17 years experience a mental health disorder. The youngest clients that we see here are 9 years old, and I've seen a wide range of middle schools and high school students coming to treatment. 40% of US adults reported struggling with mental health or substance abuse, and also there's always a co-occurring disorder with mental health and substance use. Half of all lifetime mental illness begins at age 14, and 75% by age 24. And why is that? Well, if you think about 14, right? 14, as you barely became a teenager. From 13 to 14, there's a lot of hormonal things going on. You're going into high school. You're an adolescent now, and so forth. So there's a lot of changes, a lot of things that you are now accomplishing, where you're beginning to gain your independence. You're trying to figure out who you are, and by the age you reach 24, you're a young adult, and being a young adult is scary. So you're independent now. 18, you become independent. And by that time, you're trying to figure yourself out where you want to go. And those are the age range actually by the 24, we were seeing more people that are in substance use about that age, from a young adult age. And depression alone costs the nation about $210.5 billion annually. Now think about that, $210.5 billion annually. That's a lot. And the most common mental illness in the United States are anxiety disorders, which affects about 40 million adults, about 18.1% of the population. And anxiety in psychology field, psychiatric condition could be anything. It could be from generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Obsessive compulsive also has that disorder, anxiety. So it's a variety of anxiety disorder. So prevalence among adults by condition. Major depressive episodes, about 7.8%, about 19.4 million people are affected by major depressive disorder. Schizophrenia actually is less than 1%, so it's estimated about 1.5 million people. Bipolar is basically a disorder that is known as a manic depression. It's a mental illness that brings severe high and low moods. That's about 2.8%, estimated about 7 million people. Anxiety disorders, about 48 million people, 19.1%. PTSD, 3.6, estimated 9 million people. Obsessive compulsive disorder, and this is the mental illness that causes repeated unwanted thoughts or sensations. It's like the urge to do something over and over again. About estimated 3 million people. And then borderline personality disorder is about estimated about 3.5 million people, about 1.4%. So borderline personality disorder is a mental disorder characterized by unstable moods, behaviors, and relationships. Now, let's go by demographic groups. Asian represents about 14% that experiences mental illness. Whites about 22%. Black or African Americans are 17%. American Indian or Alaska Native are 19%. Mixed multiracial, look how much it increased to it, 32%. Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islanders is about 70%. Hispanic or Latino is about 18%, and lesbian, gay, or bisexual is about 44%. And these are our demographics that you can find at the National Alliance Mental Illness, NAMI. And you'll see a lot of demographics of studies of percentages of populations and also by gender. Now let's talk about suicide rate. And this is, and the reason why I want to discuss this, because this has been increasing since 1999, and it's continued to increase. And it's scary. We see that on the news all the time. We'll see that, and the age groups are getting younger. It's the 10th leading cause of death in the United States. And it's the second leading cause of death among people aged 10 to 34. Transgender adults are nearly 12 times more likely to attempt suicide than the general population. And 78% of people who die by suicide are male. And the reason is for that is because male tend to, when they have a plan or intent, it tends to be more lethal than women. And 90% of people who die by suicide have experienced symptoms of mental health condition, but are not diagnosed. 46% of people who die by suicide have been diagnosed with mental health condition. And again, the suicide rate has increased by 35% since 1999, and it's continuing to increase. If you're not familiar with some of the accreditation with hospitals, Joint Commission is an accreditation for the hospital. That is their number one safety goal, is suicide prevention. And that's why it's so important that you don't have to be a professional person to understand what suicide ideations are, if you can recognize somebody who has signs and symptoms. We want you to know that, that everybody should be able to understand and recognize the importance of suicide, importance of somebody who was having suicide ideation. So if you look at the chart here, from 2018, you've seen an increase in males. The age-adjusted suicide death rates increased from 11.76 to about 14.24 per 100,000 people. And you see how it increases for females as well too, from 2009 and 2018. So it is pretty scary if you look at those age group and per 100,000 people. The age group actually has surpassed, if you look at this, between 2009 and 18, suicide rates increased among all age groups. In the recent years, suicide rates among adults between the ages 25 and 44 have surpassed the suicide rates of older adults of 65 and plus. American Indian Alaskan Native is actually one of the highest when it comes to suicide rates, followed by white. And you'll see here about Asian, Hispanic, and Black, almost about going the same rate, but Hispanics tend to get higher by 2018. So what are the stigma barriers of mental illness? Why are we seeing such a huge numbers in people that are depressed, anxious, and we all experience these things, right? We get depressed, we get anxious. This is sometimes it's part of our life. We cry. There's differences between those things, right? If somebody dies, we grieve, we cry. If we probably have failed our test, we feel sad, right? So these are normal circumstances, right? There's events that follows through it. But why is there such a stigma and barrier? Well, people think that people that have mental illness are dangerous and incompetent. And I've heard this before when you go to a friend or a family member, especially a family member who have stigmatized mental health, they'll tell you, it's all in your head. Why are you depressed for? You'll get over it. And also, a lot of the stigma is like, we don't want people to think that you're crazy. If you tell somebody I'm depressed, I'm anxious, or I'm having this mental breakdown, you don't want to be labeled as somebody that's crazy. And also another thing is it's a silent illness, that it's not a medical condition. So people tend to say, okay, well, there's really no treatment for mental illness. It's really not a medical condition. And also, let's think about this. It's easier for you to say, if you tell someone I'm diabetic versus I'm bipolar, right? There's a huge connotation of people's reaction when you describe versus somebody who has diabetes or bipolar. Another thing that we say is, I'll get over it. It's just something that's passing through. I'll get over it. And oftentimes, and what we also do is we suppress those feelings. And by suppressing those feelings, we rely on other things to suppress it. Hence alcohol, substance, because we don't want to experience that. So sometimes that's how people get over it. There's also this stigma that says all homeless people have mental illness. But remember, you saw the graph says less than 1% has schizophrenia. And we don't talk about mental illness in our family and outside of our family. If we discuss this, especially if you are an Asian, like for myself, Asian Americans, Hispanic, Black Americans, and other races, this is something that we don't talk about. It gives us some shame, and it makes us feel guilty. We don't want other outsiders to know that we have mental issues. It puts a huge stigma in ourselves, and we don't talk about this. No, this is not a problem that you tell anyone. You keep it in the family. I'm gonna bring it up because I think people need to understand this as well too. I know I didn't really watch it. There was just some clips of it. But when Meghan Markle and Prince Harry talked about mental illness, especially Meghan Markle, and it was such an eye-opening to see what, she can put a face in front of you and still look good and still look pretty and present this beautiful persona, but deep inside she's hurting. Again, that's why it's called the invisible illness. We never see that. We always have to put the mask on because we don't want people to see how we're suffering. Wrong with my slide, one moment, it's not, okay, there you go. Barriers and stigma again. So 10.9% of US adults with mental illness had no insurance coverage in 2019. Can you believe that? It's no coverage, insurance coverage 2019. And I'll be honest with you, because I've worked in this field, and the reimbursement rate for mental illness is so low. That's the reason why my colleagues refuse to take insurance company. And we have to go through so much hoops just to argue that this person need the services. And not only that, services, if you do have mental health coverage, it's shortened. You're not, it gives you, maybe you're lucky if you get 30 days of treatment. And that's how bad our insurance company here when it comes to giving priority to mental illness and to get them where they need to be to get help. And then 11.9% of US adults with serious mental illness had no insurance coverage in 2019. 55% of US counties do not have a single practicing psychiatrist. When we have, here in California, when the clients that we get, especially if we're doing residential facilities, we get a lot of our clients from out of state to come to California for treatment. And then when we're ready to discharge them to put them in an outpatient setting, and they're going back to wherever they're going, whether it's Utah or Montana, we find that there are not enough resources for them to continue to help. Sometimes their psychiatrists or psychologists or therapists are about 100 miles away, and they don't have any other avenue to get that help. And that's why this is important. If I hope some of you are going to this field, and I'll be honest with you, if you're thinking that, well, I'm going to be a psychologist, I'm going to make so much money, it's not. It's really by the heart, and I can't emphasize enough how important that is. 193.2 billion in lost earnings each year across the U.S. and economy. In the world, anxiety and depressive disorders cost the global economy about 1 trillion in lost productivity each year. And 20.5% of people experiencing homelessness in the U.S. have a serious mental condition. So not all homeless are mentally ill. So let's talk about resilience. Now remember, those numbers that I gave you, the resilience scale, right? We're going back to that now. I wanted to give you an idea of mental illness, and I wanted to brief you on what is happening to our country and how are we taking care of mental illness. the COVID situation, Black Lives Matter, you know, the uncertainty that we'd face for a couple of years was enough for our country to be disrupted, that it caused so much significant barriers to some. And it's like we're looking at ourselves and saying, is this how our life going to be? So if you saw my introduction, I said, you know, this is where we need to start looking at how are we going to adjust situations like this? You know, it's a very difficult situation. And so this is one of the things that I wanted to tell you is resilience, right? So let's go back to those numbers that you said, that you put out there. So remember, you forgot the questions here. The first question is, I tend to bounce back quickly after hard times. Second one is, I have a hard time making it through stressful events. Next one is, it does not take me long to recover from a stressful event. It is hard for me to snap back when something bad happens. I usually come through difficult times with little trouble, and then I tend to take a long time to get over setbacks in life. Now, hopefully you calculated all your numbers. So this is what you're gonna be. So how resilient are you? If you score between 1 to 2.99, you're low resilience. 3 to 0.430, normal resilience, and 4.31 to 5, you have high resilience. Okay, so I did this, so I came out to be like a normal resilience. I didn't want to, you know, go into the other end, which is strongly disagree or agree, but I'm about a normal resilience. So what is resilience? So resilience is a process of adapting to various challenges, from facing adversity, tragedy, trauma, threats, family problems, your relationship problems, your serious health problems or health problems, your financial, your school, workplace, right? And these are ways to adapt to the various challenges that you have. Being resilient means you are able to bounce back. That's what resilience means, right? You may not bounce back as quickly as you want, but you're able to regroup, to restructure, reanalyze, restart yourself. That's what resilience is. And this is what I teach the kids when they come here about, at a very young age, about resilience. Don't let resilience determine the outcome of your life. I'm sorry, don't let the problems that you have determine the outcome of your life, not resilience, I'm sorry. And understand that you can always control and modify and grow with it. Whatever problems you face, whatever challenges you face, it helps you get through difficult challenges or circumstances. And another thing is that it empowers you to grow. You hit a hurdle, you hit some roadblock, and then you found your way to navigate above that, go over that roadblock, go over that, that barrier. It empowers you to grow and jump through that barrier. And that's really important, that you need to understand that, yeah, in life, our life is difficult as it is. We are faced with everyday challenges. But don't let that dictate you as a failure if you did not accomplish something. The students that I see now, we've been getting a lot of high school students, and again, and younger. And the parents always tells me they were very studious, they are always getting good grades, A's and so forth, but all of a sudden they just have no motivation. They're getting F's and so forth. And I always ask the parents, did this happen before, or did this happen during the lockdown? And the parents said, yeah, during the lockdown, when they started doing more online. Well, think about this. As a child, as a young adolescent, you know your ritual, right? You go wake up in the morning, you go to school, you see your friends, you study, you're about 6 to 7 hours that you're in class. You have your support there, you have your teachers there, you have your other friends there, your students. You go home, mom and dad's there, but of course, I'm a mom myself, but it's so hard for me to keep my kids focused in school. And just think about this, all of a sudden, it was abruptly taken away from them, abruptly. And so as a young person, you're looking at yourself and going, okay, I know I'm supposed to have a ritual going to school, but now it's just been pushed out. What do I do next? And then days became weeks, they became months, they became year. And all of a sudden as a child, you're looking at yourself going, Is this ever gonna go away? Right? And then you're trying to adjust, but in a very difficult way. And also on top of that, we're telling our kids, don't go out with other kids, don't go out with other people, because you might get them sick. And I feel like we've labeled our child already as if there's some disease already, or they might cause somebody to die. And it's very hurtful for a child to experience something like that, or to anyone. But again, these are the things that had happened recently to us that us Americans were not, as the world, were not able to adjust. It was just something that's like, what is going on, And again, it was really a struggle. So think about that. Right? How are we going to jump through this barrier? Okay. So how does cultural humility play in this? So let's explain cultural humility. Well, cultural humility actually started with medicine, the field of medicine. And as we know, in the United States, being diverse, being multicultural, diversity is inevitable. 60% of race and ethnicity in the United States are white, Hispanic. Hispanics about 18.5%. There's 13.4% that are Black, 6% Asian, 1.3% are Native Americans, or Native American, Native Alaskan, 0.2% Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander, 3.2% Middle Eastern, and 2.8% two or more races. And there's more. I just wanted to give you basically a demographic of what the United States is looking like now, right? And Asians, it's a big continent. It could be, it's a variety of different Asians as well too. It's been also Hispanic and also Middle Eastern, right? It's a group of other people that's there. We have become more diverse than ever. Given the complexity of multiculturalism, it is beneficial to understand other cultures, gaining not only factual knowledge, but also gaining ongoing attitudes towards ourselves and others. So I think you guys probably you all heard cultural humility, competency, cultural sensitivity. So shifted attitudes and mindset. What are the differences between those three? Well, if you talk about cultural competency, you're talking about knowledge acquisition. You're learning, right? You're learning somebody's culture and you're trying to not appease, but more trying to understand how will that work in certain circumstances, right? Cultural sensitivity is you're being aware of others, other culture. But cultural humility is being aware of yourself. How do you react to others? How do you perceive that culture? Right? So that's the difference with cultural humility. It is a construct for understanding the developing process-oriented approach to competency, ability to maintain an interpersonal stance that is other-oriented or open to the other in relations to aspects of cultural identity that are most important to the person. It's about accepting our limitations, increasing your self-awareness, your own biases, your perception, your self-reflection, and most important, your empathy. Your empathy. I'm going to give you a story about my 7-year-old, and I don't really like putting her on the spot, but but it tells you how children see things and how quickly they can assess themselves. My 7-year-old, she was playing a game one time. She's playing this roadblock or something that she's playing. And mind you, she was playing and then she said, I hate you. I don't want to play with you. You're mean. And then I said, Victoria, why are you saying that they're mean? And then she said, well, because what? I said, well, because they're Black. I'm like, my heart stopped. I was like, what? Excuse me? And she said, and she just stayed quiet. And I said, Victoria, that's not nice. That's not cool. You would see something like that. And I said to her, Papa, your Grandpa's Black. Yeah. Is Grandpa mean? No. Mommy's bosses. You've met some of Mommy's bosses, Mr. Ray, Mr. George, right? They're Black, right? Yeah. Were they mean? No. Okay. So why are you saying they're mean? And she didn't respond to me. And she said, and I said to her, let's say you're in the playground and somebody tells you, ooh, Victoria, you're Asian. Your skin is tan or yellow. You're mean. I don't like you. How would that make you feel? And my 7-year-old daughter's like, that won't feel good. I said, exactly. And she said, okay, I get it. And her face really changed, like her face like kind of like really became very stoic at that point. Well, 2 days later, I came home and my husband said to me, I will never take your kid. He didn't say, I will never take our kid out. He said, I will never take your daughter out to the park again. And I said, what happened? And this is, I kid you not, this is my husband said, we were at the park. She was playing with somebody. And I was looking at my phone and she screamed at me. She said, Daddy. And I looked up and then she said, Daddy, look, I'm playing with black people, black kids. My husband said, oh my gosh, I wanted to go under the table and just like literally just go under the table and hide. And then I laughed and I said, because she is trying to tell you that she's doing, like she's now reflecting that they're not bad, right? But for my husband, it was a very traumatic event. So, needless to say, so it kind of learned for me as well too, to really open up my child in the sense of, well, they need to have an interaction with other people. And where we live, there is a diversity, but it's not as diverse as where I would like it to be. But again, that's like, again, the self-reflection for herself, right? Another thing I want to talk about is empathy is another thing that we need to understand, and putting yourself in other shoes. There's 3 factors in cultural humility: lifelong commitment to self-evaluation and self-critique. Ongoing knowledge is never finished. We continue to learn. Be flexible, humble, evaluate yourself. Why do we think this way? And again, empathize. Desire to fix power imbalances where none out to exist. Recognizing that each person brings something different, recognizing their worth, value, learn from each other for the best outcome, right? The last one is develop partnerships with people and groups who advocate for others. Come together as a group, advocate for others, educate others, no more than just your own community. I do presentations on Filipino Americans because there's so many misconceptions about Filipino Americans. And that was something that I'm very passionate about, and not just Filipino Americans, but other Asians as well. And so, I wanted to express to people the differences in that culture and how we can come together and be, the more diverse we are, the stronger we are, And I really understand and I really believe that because it puts us all in different perspective. So how do you build mental health resilience through cultural humility? Well, what should you do? I want you all to understand this. You can make a goal, long-term, short-term goal, find a purpose in your life. Be proactive and move towards your goal. Look for opportunities, do what benefits you. It's okay to be selfish, but also remember that these goals doesn't have to have a time frame. An example is probably most of you are saying, by the age of 21, I want to get my bachelor's. By the age of 24, I want to make sure I already got my master's. And by the time I'm 30, I have a career, I have kids, yada, yada, all the stuff, right? But what happens if you reach 21, you didn't finish college yet, your bachelor's? Are you going to stop? Are you going to say, you know what, forget it. I didn't finish this one goal, so I'm not going to finish the rest. So don't put a time frame. You have to live by what is more comfortable for you, and this is your time, nobody else's time. I had a kid at a late age. I wasn't really planning to have kids. I said to myself, if my biological clock ticks and doesn't tick anymore after that, and it's all done, it goes, boom, I can adopt. I didn't see that as a hindrance in my hindrance in my growth. I said I can always adopt. It's okay to reset and decompress. This means that you can cry. Yes, it's okay to cry. You can shout. You can feel the pain, accept the bump on the road. It's okay. That happened to me not too long ago. I was so stressed and so overworked. There were so many things that I was doing and juggling at the same time that I messed up on my deposition. And mind you, I've been in depositions before, but this time I really messed it up. I cried. I was in my couch in my office and I went to my couch after deposition. I started crying. And I was like, oh my gosh, no one's going to hire me anymore. These attorneys were so mad at me and so forth. And I was really devastated. I was very devastated. And I knew I was already ready to, I knew I was making mistakes for weeks, prior weeks back because I was doing so much work. The next day, the attorney called me. Of course, she chewed me out. And then the other attorney said, you know, Lorna, you've always been a great, good in deposition. You've always wanted, you've done our cases before and you did great. What happened? And I said to him, you know what? I wasn't thinking right. I was just really overwhelmed. I had to deal with, a lot of crisis at my office, crisis in the other places. There was some suicide ideation, so forth, and clients. I wasn't probably getting enough sleep. And after that, I put myself together and I said, you know what? It's okay. I made a mistake. We're all humans. And a friend of mine came down here from Sacramento and had to do the same thing to me and basically say, it's okay. It happened to me. So whatever challenges or breakdown you have, it's okay. Okay. Decompress, reset. It's okay. Doesn't mean you're a failure. Take care of yourself, self-care, mindfulness, avoid negative coping mechanisms like alcohol, drugs, excessive spending, whatever. These are quick fixes. They only put bandages over it. It doesn't help you in the long run. Self-care. I'm pretty bad at self-care and I'm preaching to you and here I am. Technically, I was supposed to have a massage done 2 days ago. I had to cancel. Yesterday, I had to cancel. But today, I'm definitely going to go. So again, as much as I want to tell you all what to do, I'm pretty bad with my self-care as well too. But again, it's to help me reset. Embrace healthy thoughts, accept change, maintain a hopeful outlook in your life. Learn from your past. What have we learned from this past? What have we learned from 2019, 2020 to now? How can we make that change? How can we move forward, right? And also get to know yourself, get to know your culture, your race, your family origin. That is so important. I cannot emphasize enough how much of your family origins create you. Murray Bowen is one of my favorite psychiatrists. He was a very good in family systems theory. And he said, parents parent the way they parents because of their parents before. It's a multi-generational pattern, right? So when you change your shift and you said to yourself, I'm not gonna think like my parents and I'm gonna be different from my parents. You have created a disorder in your homeostasis and then your family sees you as a black sheep. It's important to know your family of origin because then you know what the flaws are. What are the goods and the bads, what you can take of it. Take away, what can you take from it? What can you adjust? What can you learn? Right? So get to know yourself. It's really important to get to know yourself. Get to know other people, other culture, and explore environment. Do not get out of the bubble. I live in Orange County for about 20 years now, and I'm originally from LA County. And when they say Orange County was a bubble, yeah, it was it was a bubble. And so I always say explore. I've been to different counties in California. We have so many counties, and it's so amazing just going to different counties and looking how people live and just embracing that. And I've been, I haven't been to a lot of countries as well too, but it's just, embracing and looking at that culture. It's so different. It's I don't want to say refreshing, but to me, it was great to know. Rethink your own bias. That what me too. Rethink your own biases. Why do you think that way? Why do you generalize, right? And then also don't carry all the weight in your shoulder. I had a child, a 14-year-old that had a high anxiety, and she was on Twitter and I finally got to her and I said, "What's causing your anxiety?" And she said, "Twitter." I said, "What's Twitter doing to cause your anxiety?" Well, remember the riot that happened? Well, yeah, the riots, and then the protest out there, and then also the siege in the Capitol Hill. She started freaking out, and she said, "What? It's so dangerous out there." And she was crying, and she said, my life's never going to get better. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. And I told her, "You're 14. Why are you carrying all this weight on your shoulder? why are you worrying about adult problems? And I had to tell her, I said, I'm so sorry, but to tell you this, and I'm going to apologize, sometimes adults act like kids. And that's what you were seeing. And I said, if you want to make a change, wait till you're 18 when you're ready to vote. Okay. And so that's the way you can change. That's what I told her. Another thing is build your social support and diversity and diversify them, right? Build more. I mean, and what I mean by diversify doesn't have to be ethnicity or culture. You know, it's when we do assessments and we ask them, what's your culture? Some people and the Caucasians would say, white would say none. And then I have to explain to them, and I have to explain to them, culture does not necessarily mean ethnicity. Culture can be, people from the East Coast, from the East Coast to the West Coast have a very different personality. People from the Midwest have a different personality, right? So that's what I mean by culture. And, there's also skateboarding culture, surfing culture, different types of things. So that's what I mean also by diversifying yourself. If you do not know, please ask. Don't make assumptions and do not generalize. And that's so important. Do not make assumptions. Just because you see one person doing that or two, you're making an assumption and you're generalizing that that's how all they are. It used to irk me when I say to them Filipino, and the two things that they always ask me, so are you a nurse? Is your father in the Navy? And I said, actually, no and no, but thank you for asking. I'm glad that we are, nurse and in the Navy. And then I explained to them why. It used to irk me before, now it doesn't. I take pride of that, I said, well, and I give them a history of why. Get help. Seek professional help if you need to. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't be embarrassed. We're here for a reason. And there has now been a good connection between your medical professionals and your mental health professionals. And they know now the signs of depression and suicide and so forth. So so they're able to refer them to a mental health profession. So don't be afraid, right? Seek some professional help. Last thing is I want you to understand is just be human. Our life is complicated as it is. We go through so many challenges, but we sometimes forget we're human. That separates us from animals. We're human. That means that we're smart. We're able to adapt. We're able to accept. And if we can't even be human, what else can we be? Animals. We have feelings. Words can definitely hurt people. Labeling can definitely hurt people. But you have to be able to recognize and understand why you think the way you think. And that's what I mean by being human, being self-reflect yourself, being self-aware of what goes through you. And the logo in my hidden strengths, and the reason why I chose hidden strength is because you're finding the strength in you. All of us have a hidden strength we're not using. And I truly believe that us being human and being so diverse and so diverse is that each one of us bring the strength of all of us. We have that strength. And I still really believe in this notion that it takes a community to raise a child. And most of my clients have my direct number, because I tell them if there's anything that is bothering you, any issues at all, I don't care what time of day it is, call me. If it's just a little thing for you to vent, call me. I'm being human. I'm reaching out. Well, my time is up. Thank you all for listening. And please, if you have any questions, unfortunately, I can't see some of the questions there, but I'm going to stop sharing this slide. And hopefully I can see some of the questions here.